Good morning and happy Sabbath. And also, perhaps a little early, Merry Christmas. I love Christmas. I'm just going to go right out and say it. I love the holiday season. I love the Christmas season. I like to start it as early as possible, perhaps too early, according to, depending on who you talk to. I love everything about it. I love ugly Christmas sweaters. I love Christmas parties. I love Christmas trees. I love all the things. I love walking in a winter wonderland. I love dreaming of a white Christmas. Even though, let's be real, guys, we live in Southern California, and so that's really a pipe dream unless you want to drive up to Big Bear or Mammoth. But it doesn't stop me from, even when the weather is not appropriate for certain outerwear, I will wear it anyways because I want to pretend like I'm cold, so I can still have that feeling that comes with this. I feel like during this time of year, I'm saturated with Christmas, the idea of Christmas, but I think that sometimes we have to be careful. Because we tend to romanticize certain things, right? Especially when they're abstracts in our minds, and especially when you spend all year looking forward to something like Christmas, we tend to go overboard on romanticizing it, and not just the trappings and the decorations and all of that around Christmas, because we have to remember that for us as Christians, Christ is the point of Christmas. And so myself, like many others, I'm like, well, that's not a problem because I've got Advent calendars and I've got a little storybook Advent calendar, and I go through that and I tell my boys the story of the birth of Christ every year. We have the Advent wreath that we light throughout the Advent season because of the hope and the light that Christ brings into our lives. Like, no worries, guys, got that covered. And then when it comes to carols, I love, like, this is my favorite hymn time of year, because between you and me, like Away in a Manger and Silent Night, I think they're just so incredibly beautiful, and I can't get enough of those. But again, we have to be careful, because sometimes we even romanticize. There are some technical difficulties, stand by. Sometimes we have a tendency to even romanticize that very event. And we have a tendency to go into the abstract on it. And in fact, this might sound weird coming from a Christian pastor, an Adventist pastor in an Adventist church, but sometimes we even over-spiritualize certain aspects and certain events and certain things. Because let's be real, it wasn't a silent night when Jesus was born. And it wasn't completely peaceful, at least at first, because being part of the process of bringing two human beings into the world, if there is one thing I've learned from those experiences, is that the process is anything but peaceful. And the process is anything but silent. Now there is the afterglow, and there is when baby is there and in the arms, and that's like that magical moment of peace and serenity, but it takes a whole lot to get there. But then I think that sometimes when we talk about that, we like to sanitize and romanticize and abstract things because we don't really want the reality. We want the illusion, we want the image, because that just looks nicer. We have to be careful, because when Christ came, Christ was not a ghost. Jesus was not a spirit just floating around, wandering around, not actually touching. Jesus was a human being that interacted with a very real world and did very real things. And all too often we look throughout the life, and we even look here and we look at the birth of Jesus, and what does this symbolize? And we talk about the gifts of the Magi, and we talk about the symbols of the gold for a king, and frankincense for a priest, and myrrh for the one who is to die. And we spiritualize and romanticize and idealize and abstract that. But for the mother of Jesus, for Mary, Jesus represented something so much more real in a way so much more ordinary, but in a way so much more important than just that alone. So before we dig into our text this morning, please pray with me. Father in heaven, Lord, you came as a human being. You were God with us through the person of Jesus Christ, and you are the one that saves, but you're also the one that is with us, and you're also the one that hears and sees us in the very real things that we go through. And in this holiday season, Lord, may we not lose sight of that. Speak, Lord. We're listening. Amen. A long time ago, in the town of Nazareth in Galilee, a teenage girl was told by an angel that she is going to become pregnant. A teenage girl that's not just a teenage girl, but a teenage girl that is engaged to be married to somebody. Now, Mary may be young, but she is no fool. Mary may be young and inexperienced, but she is bright and she is sharp. And I believe that Mary knows exactly what that means when she takes on this call. She knows exactly what people are going to say. She knows exactly what people are going to think when she turns up pregnant before she is married. Perhaps she understands what may happen when she breaks the news to Joseph, because how do you break news like that to the person you're going to marry? Hey, just want to let you know I'm pregnant. Not yours. It's God's though, so it's okay. There's a reason why Joseph starts to go through a process to politely and discreetly and kindly end it before an angel tells him not to. Mary has to live with the reality of what happens here. And it is a beautiful thing, and it is a miracle, absolutely. But when people look at Elizabeth's miracle, they celebrate and they praise. When people look at Mary's miracle, there's always that side eye. There's always that, yeah, but there's that question that hangs in the silence. So Mary retreats. Mary gets away. Mary leaves where she's at and goes to Elizabeth. And when she goes to Elizabeth, and when they see each other, and when they recognize the miracles that have happened together, Mary is overwhelmed, and Mary breaks out in song. And starting in verse 46 of Luke 1, this is what she says. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowly state of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name." And I love how Mary says here, I am blessed not because of who I am blessed not because of what I've done. I'm blessed because of who God is and what God has done with me and through me and for me. He is, indeed, his mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has come to the aid of his child Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever. And I love how Luke talks about Mary. Because even though Mary is young, Mary is sharp and bright. And when Mary has taken on this call, she has not leapt in with her eyes closed. She's not just blindly leapt in. She knows what she is in for, and she knows what Jesus is here to do. And in fact, what we see here in Luke 1 is a foreshadowing of what Jesus is going to say in Luke chapter 4. So in Luke chapter 4, starting in verse 16, he stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me." And remember, the anointing is that messianic idea that Jesus is the Messiah because he is the anointed one. He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. I believe that the Magnificat, that's kind of the fancy term we use for Mary's song of praise. I believe that Mary's song is not just some abstract thesis. That Mary's song is not just some over-spiritualized, praise to God. That Mary is speaking very real about real things and understanding the socioeconomic struggles that she deals with and that her people deal with. Understands that Jesus represents something different. Jesus represents something radical. In fact, when Mary sings to God, Mary is making a radical announcement of the kingdom of God. It is revolutionary, the incarnation. It is revolutionary what Jesus comes to do. Because Jesus seeks to flip upside down the worldly systems we have built for ourselves. And I believe that he does this in three different ways. There's three revolutions we see here in Mary's song of praise. First, he has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. There's a very famous story of a man who goes to a doctor. And he tells the doctor, "Doctor, I am incredibly depressed. The world is harsh, the world is cruel, the world is not fair, and I am so tired of it." And the doctor's like, "What do I do?" And the doctor says, "Hey, good news. Pagliacci the clown is in town with the circus. Go and see him, and everything will be fine. You'll feel better, your spirits will be lifted, you'll be good to go." The man breaks down weeping and says, "But doctor, you don't understand. I am Pagliacci the clown." Like him, we have a tendency to wear masks. It's no coincidence that when Jesus calls out the people of his time, the religious authorities, he calls them hypocrites. He calls them hypocrites because what it means is actor. And in Greek theater and Greek drama, the actors wear masks to represent different roles. And so, like them, like Pagliacci, we wear masks all the time. We lie to ourselves all the time. We tell ourselves that we are fine when we are not fine. We fool ourselves into thinking that we are better than or more than. We fool ourselves into thinking we've got it all sorted out and figured out and we don't need anything more. Like the church of Laodicea, we think that we are clothed, but we are actually naked and cold and hungry. The revolution of God is a moral revolution. In beholding Jesus, in seeing who Jesus is and what Jesus is about, we are also shown ourselves. And typically it is a picture we do not want to see. Because how many of us really want to be shown fully who we are and what we are capable of? It is far easier to put on the mask and to tell the lie. It is hard and it is terrifying to be vulnerable and honest with others about how we are doing. It is incredibly scary to ask for help, because society has taught us that those things are weakness and you do not show weakness to others, because what will they do if they know your weaknesses? How could they exploit you or take advantage of you if they know where it hurts? Sure, if you build up the walls and put on the mask, you might be able to protect yourself. But it is also an incredibly lonely and sad place to be in there by yourself. In beholding Jesus, we are shown ourselves, and in this moral revolution, Jesus heralds the death of pride. Jesus says, it's okay that you're not okay. I didn't come here for a bunch of spiritually well people. I didn't come here for people that had it all figured out. I didn't come here for people with the nice shining masks that were hiding the whitewashed tombs. I didn't come for all of that. I came for broken people in need of fixing, in need of a Savior, in need of the very presence of God. So when Mary announces this role of Jesus, she's announcing God's moral revolution in our world, in our lives, and in our hearts. He has brought down from the powerful down from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. God's revolution is a social revolution. In the coming of Christ and the way that Christ comes, and we have to remember who Christ really is as a person. It is so easy to lose sight of the human Christ in light of the cosmic resurrected Christ. It is easy to lose sight of Jesus when we see whitewashed Aryan Jesuses all over the place. But we have to remember that that's not how Jesus looked, and that's not who Jesus was. Jesus was a person of color, living in an oppressed society, oppressed by another force from outside. Jesus was a refugee, that Jesus had to leave the place of his birth and his homeland because of fear of persecution, and had to leave to another country and stay there for a while until he could return when the heat died down. Jesus was a homeless preacher wandering around without much money to his name. His disciples took advantage of the rights given to the poor as they would go and actually pluck grain and corn from people's fields. In fact, who Jesus really was as a person is a person that many of us would reject today, or worse, ignore. Pretend like they aren't there. But Christ came with a social revolution to put an end to labels, to put an end to caste systems, to put an end to social levels and stigmas, an end to othering and exclusion. Paul tells us that there is no Jew or Greek or free or slave or male or female in Christ Jesus. That he came to do away with the labels and the tags. He came to do away with the things where we used to say, how are we better than each other? Because Christ says we all are in the same boat. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. No one is righteous, not even one. We are all the same. We are all children of God. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. I'm going to be bluntly honest today, church. This is the one that I think hits many of us the hardest, and this is the one that many of us try to spiritualize the most. Even when we look at the Gospel of Matthew, we feel like maybe in the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. But then Luke turns around, and Luke goes, oh, no, I'm not going to let, blessed are the poor, full stop. The revolution of God is an economic revolution. When we look at non-Christian society, what is the point of non-Christian society? And there is one word that comes to mind, and that is consume. that this is a consumer-driven market, that this is a consumer-driven society, that society wants us to be afraid, that society wants us to think less of ourselves, because if we are afraid and we don't like ourselves, we will buy whatever it is they're selling in order to not feel those things, in order to keep away the existential terror we consume. We are an acquisitive and acquisition-based society where it is about who can have the most and the best stuff. And even worse, we are a transactional society, and a society without Christ is a fully transactional society where what you get is actually more important than what you give. Where all of our gifts have strings attached because they're not really gifts, they are transactions. We even take that and we take it into our churches, into our religious lives, and we apply it to God, and we treat God like God is some sort of cosmic vending machine where we put in the right prayers, or we do the right things, or we check off the right lists, and we get the things we want out at the end. And Christ comes to flip that upside down. Christ comes and says, it is better to serve than to be served. Christ comes and says, the last will be first and the first will be last. Christ comes and he feeds people, crowds, for free, asking nothing in return. Christ comes and he heals for free, asking nothing in return. And I like how William Barclay puts it. A Christian society is a society where no one dares to have too much while others have too little, where everyone must get only to give away. And I like how, I think it's Winston Churchill who said, a living is made by what you get. A life is made by what you give. And Christ comes, and in this revolution, Christ tells us that our systems are broken and that our systems have to change. That the relationships we have are the most important things that we have. And I love how Jesus says, look, stuff is stuff. Moth destroys and the thieves steal. Those are things that come and go, and you can't take it with you. But if you invest in the kingdom, and if you invest in relationship with God and relationship with others, you have a treasure that nothing can take away. A society where no one dares to have too much while others have too little. I believe these are questions that we as a church should be asking this holiday season. Because I'm with you. It's really easy to get caught up in the decorations, and it's really easy to get caught up in the spirit of the season, and it's really easy to get caught up in all the nice, rosy pictures of things. But we have to ask the real questions, because Jesus wasn't just an abstract idea. Jesus was a human being who lived and laughed and cried and died. And as such, we as the church who are carrying on the life of Christ in the world around us, and this is something I say a lot, we as the body of Christ live the life of Christ in the world around us. These are the questions that we should be asking. Do the people in my life really know who I am? Do I really even know who I am? If I need help, am I willing and able to ask for help? Or am I too proud? When have I othered somebody in my life, in my world, in my circles around me? When have I excluded others and kept them from the things that I have? This joy and this peace that surpasses all understanding, have I kept others away from the things that I have gotten from Christ? Am I living a life where I don't care if others have too little, and I don't care if I or others have too much? And what am I doing to help to fill the hungry with good things. And in closing here, I think that Jesus says something really powerful. What he's talking about is a life devoid of meaning, that when you fill your life with stuff, there's not really a whole lot of substance there. When you fill your life with pride, there's no room for others in there. When you live your life obsessed with your status, obsessed with your station, there's really not room for anything else in there. And at the end of the day, as the teacher says, meaningless. All of that is meaningless. You can't take those titles with you. You can't take that stuff with you, and your pride goes into the grave with you. What matters is the connections we have with each other. So, in this holiday season, may you listen to the words of Mary. And may we as a church, may we as Adventists, may we as Christians seek the world that Jesus wants to see.